So far, I have been pretty much silent when it comes to two topics, Candace Owens and Tyler Robinson. The reason that I've been silent about the first one, Candace Owens, is because I just don't want to highlight any more about her. Look, she is what she is. I have my theories, but unlike her, just because I have a theory doesn't mean I have to go out and spill it. But as far as Tyler Robinson, it's been talked about. You know me, I don't like to just go out there and grab the topic of the moment and just start talking about it randomly. But here's the thing. I did see a post this morning by Candace Owens, and all right, fine. I got to respond. There's just no way around. I got to respond to it. She posted, and this is in response, to be clear, this is in response to is another weird conspiracy by somebody, assumedly somebody who is a fan of Candace Owens, saying that they did not repost this thing by Data Republican, which I'm not going to talk about today. I'll be talking about, well, I won't be talking about it in this show. I'll be talking about it later during the JD Rucker show. It's more of a deep dive into what Data Republican and others have been saying regarding Tyler Robinson, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, Eric Kirk, TPUSA, the whole works. Not doing the deep dive today. I just want to focus on Candace's response to this. She says, wild but expected with the level of propaganda we've seen this week. That's standard operating procedure. It's all propaganda. The propaganda campaign has no teeth, she said. Now, this is the part that got me. And this is where it's like, okay, fine. Damn it. I got to respond. She says, nobody in the world outside of Zionists believe Tyler Robinson murdered Charlie Kirk and that Israel's hands are clean. Keep fighting, everyone. Every day, Charlie's army grows. Now, obviously, Candace Owens says outrageous things all the time. That's her thing now. Okay, it didn't always used to be her thing. She used to be pretty lucid. I've posted stuff about her all the time. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know however long ago it was, but I would repost her posts and her shows, and she seemed like a standard semi-conservative commentator who said some correct things. Okay, she seemed like that at least. But something happened. And her statement that nobody in the world outside of Zionists believe Tyler Robinson murdered Charlie Kirk and that Israel's hands are clean. Now, I noticed I didn't take it out of context. I wanted to make sure to read the entire thing because a lot of people are going to say they're going to focus on nobody in the world outside of Zionists believe Tyler Robinson murdered Charlie Kirk. And that's the part that is outrageous because I actually don't know anyone who's familiar with the case who doesn't believe that Tyler Robinson murdered Charlie Kirk. I mean, as of today, the 10th of July, every single person I know, pretty much everybody I mean, even Megyn Kelly, who's been a sort of a, she's got that weird thing going. Even she, a couple days ago, before even more evidence came out yesterday, even she was saying, yeah, I mean, everything seems to be pointing to what was her words? She said that everything points to Tyler Robinson being the trigger man. Okay? Murderer, assassin. It seems pretty darn crystal clear. DNA evidence, video evidence. I know you got those videos out there where the guys are like doing measurements and see, it says it's listed on the document that he's 5'10", but according to this, whatever. No. Her statement has to be read in full context. So the next words after she says that are, and the and is the important part, and that Israel's hands are clean. In other words, what she's saying here is that she claims that only Zionists believe that Tyler Robinson murdered Charlie Kirk without Israel being involved. Okay? So she's saying that there are people that don't believe that Tyler Robinson murdered Charlie Kirk, and there are people that believe Tyler Robinson murdered Charlie Kirk, but that Israel was involved in the murder. And those are pretty much, that's everybody. She says nobody else. There is nobody else. And that obviously is is quite false. But I want to turn to Kaneko the Great, somebody who knew Charlie Kirk, and he worked together, collaborated on different projects, research projects, and one of the best telegrams I have access to, by the way, the dude knows his stuff, right? Well, here he is, his response to this is the response to Data Republican, which again I'm not going to read this now, but I will be talking about it on the JD Rucker show later this afternoon.
And the craziest part, the one person you've exonerated from the beginning, from the very start. You blame the US military for killing Charlie Kirk, French legionnaires, Egyptian planes. You blame Kash Patel, the US government, FBI, the Trump administration. You blame all these people for murdering Charlie Kirk. TPUSA, his own loved ones, his own widow. The one person you're certain was not involved, totally exonerated, Tyler Robinson. The guy who confessed multiple times to the crime. The guy whose gun was found right next to the crime scene. The guy who was caught by a police officer trying to retrieve his gun. With his DNA all over the trigger. With his DNA on the spent casings. The guy whose own parents turned him in for murdering Charlie Kirk. And that's the one guy since day one who you're 100% certain is innocent. Meanwhile, Egyptian planes, French legionnaires, Bridget Macron, the US military, Kash Patel, TPUSA, all these people were involved in the murder of Charlie Kirk, but you're 100% certain Tyler Robinson is innocent? It's crazy. Totally disconnected from reality. And absolutely disgusting, just dancing on Charlie Kirk's grave as you monetize his murder. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Honestly, it's been some of the most vile, demonic I've ever seen in my life. There's something profoundly evil about claiming you want justice for Charlie while you systematically slander the people and the organization he spent his entire life building and loving. You claim to be defending his legacy, but you've treated his best friends and his own widow as co-conspirators. And you've done it without presenting a single shred of direct evidence. What you've actually done is a total inversion of the facts. You treated a DNA-linked confession from Tyler Robinson as a distraction, while treating Egyptian planes that have zero connection to the murder as a smoking gun. Think about how insane that sounds. You're looking away from the confession and a murder weapon and looking towards the First Lady of France. Why? Why would any investigative journalist work this hard to ignore the person who actually pulled the trigger to focus on Bridget Macron? A confession corroborated by physical evidence is what leads to a conviction in most courtrooms. But for you, it was an inconvenience in the way of your ad-reading soap opera. So instead of following the DNA, you construct a story that leads to Brigitte Macron. It's a complete reversal of reality. You exonerated the actual suspect who confessed multiple times to the crime, and in his place, you accused Egyptian planes, Charlie's organization, and his grieving widow. You aren't seeking justice. You're performing a character assassination on the victims while providing cover for the killer. It's the ultimate betrayal of everything Charlie Kirk stood for. And to do it under the guise of searching for the truth is a total disgrace.
Obviously, lots of important stuff there, but a couple of things that really stood out to me. You know, the monetization of murder, which is obviously the most hideous part. And my question is this, though. Is that it? I mean, is this just a greed play? Is this just, oh my gosh, you know, because here's the thing. If you look back at her viewership, you look back at her revenue model, you know, within this podcastosphere, her popularity skyrocketed once she started accusing Brigitte Macron of being a man. Okay. And then it started leveling out a bit until she started talking all anti-Zionist. Okay, fine. After the Charlie Kirk assassination, and then her subsequent series of conspiracy theories over and over, something new. You know, so she'd get one up there and it'd be big, and she'd be like, you know, we got the information coming, and then she'd either bring out some weird information that didn't necessarily corroborate what she had initially claimed, or it did corroborate, but from sources that didn't offer real corroboration, or she would just sort of start talking about something else, right? And I want to be clear. So just for transparency, I've never watched a single episode. Okay, I've only seen the clips, and those are the ones that get shared. So I don't have a very complete picture of Candace Owens. Not in my mind, not in anything. I see the hideous things she says. I see the things that she posts on X, and I see responses to the things that she posts. And yeah, I mean, I think that I have a pretty clear picture. But my question is it just the money? Because it's true, her popularity has skyrocketed as a result of, it seems as if the crazier she says, the crazier the things are that she says, the more popular she gets. Is she just grifting? Is she just taking advantage of her audience and trying to make money? Or is she insane? Possible. A lot of people say it's certain. I don't see that. You know, the difference between a grifter and somebody who has mental issues, oftentimes you can't really tell the difference. Or is it something demonic? Does she have a spirit working on her, working against her, working through her? I shouldn't say against her, working through her. I mean, it is against her, but it seems as if if that were the case, then she seems to be doing it willingly. And one can argue that's part of how these things work. I'm not going to get into those types of. I'll start sounding like her if I say, "Oh my gosh, I have evidence and proof coming that she is demonically possessed." I don't have any proof. Okay, I just look at her activities, her actions, her words, and it certainly seems like she's either a grifter, or she's crazy, or she's demonically influenced and or even possessed. That's it. I don't see another option here. I mean, I guess option 4 is that she's right, and that would be crazy. Then we're the insane ones, all of us. But yeah, it's incredible that she's doubling down, tripling down. She's continuing to go. But then I look at the responses, and again, I look at the aforementioned numbers. The crazier she gets, the more popular she gets. What does it tell us? Number one, it tells us that all three of those, the possibilities, not counting that fourth possibility, but the three most likely scenarios, well, yeah, I mean, it plays. It plays out. It also tells us that she's not alone in her whatever it is, craziness, the demonic possession, being willing to be grifted upon, I guess. All those things seem to be very common and growing. And this is the reason. Why have I not talked about her thus far? Because I really just want to ignore her and let it go away. I wish that none of these people, including Ben Shapiro, I wish they would just stop talking about her altogether. I really do. I don't want to talk about her anymore. But again, I felt compelled based upon the idiocy. And yes, I will talk about her at least one more time on today's episode of the J.D. Rucker Show, which starts at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. It's not on this channel. It's on the J.D. Rucker Show channel on Rumble. So you're watching on Patriot TV. Check that out on the J.D. Rucker Show channel, where I am there Monday through Friday. So, all right, let's get to some better topics. Fresh reports are coming out of Israel that Iran plans to try to assassinate President Trump. This seems to echo, now that it's coming out publicly, this seems to echo what President Trump has been insinuating throughout his meeting with NATO. He's been going after Iran, obviously, with his rhetoric. He's also been going after Iran and punishing them for their breaching of the ceasefire. He's hitting them hard. And during this funeral of the deceased Ayatollah Khomeini, they haven't just been mourning, they have been using it as an opportunity to have the people publicly display their contempt, their anger towards the United States, and particularly towards President Trump, including images and effigies and whatever, pictures of him with crosshairs over his head. Some are directly, I've seen signs in English at Khamenei's funeral saying that they are going to kill President Trump. Well, and again, President Trump has reiterated that he was on their lists while he was speaking in the NATO summit. Well, now we've got a report out of Israel corroborating all of that. Now, before I get into this report, though, let's state up front, a lot of times I think people assume that the President of the United States is untouchable. I know that fewer of us assume that now, especially after, 3, 4 assassination attempts against them, including one that hit his ear, survived only by by the grace of God was he able to miraculously turn his head at the exact moment that prevented him from being assassinated. There were rumors at the time, reports that had come out about an assassination plot, multiple assassination plots, murder for hire plots by the Iranians right around the time that the Butler assassination attempt occurred. And there were similar reports that happened afterwards. Now we're getting another batch of reports. So bottom line is, take this seriously. This is real. This is legitimate. Iran is not so beaten that they can't do anything. They still have terror cells across the world, including here in the United States of America. They still have millions of sympathizers. They still have ways to make things happen, unfortunately. According to the article that we have over at jdrucker.com, Iran's fresh assassination plot against Trump exposes the regime's unyielding evil. And that's really what this is. I mean, this is about the evil mentality that their government has. This isn't about saying that the Iranian people, the Persians in Iran, 90 million people, are evil. It's to say that the regime itself is definitely, clearly evil. And one can argue that maybe they're even more evil now that the Ayatollah is dead. Now, with apparently the IRGC is in charge, and it seems like the hardliners within that elite military group may be even worse than when the Ayatollah was in charge. As America navigates a world still reeling from conflict in the Middle East, Israeli intelligence has delivered a sobering warning to Washington. Iran is actively weighing yet another scheme to assassinate President Donald Trump. This revelation arrives amid Iran's national mourning for Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, whose death in earlier U.S. and Israeli strikes has done nothing to dampen the regime's bloodlust. If anything, it's made them harsher. The timing is no coincidence. While crowds in Tehran chant death to America and paraded effigies of Trump through the streets, hardliners openly called for missiles targeting the U.S. leader. Posters with crosshairs over Trump's face and warnings that your heads will roll are not subtle expressions of grief. These are declarations of intent. Far from a grieving nation seeking peace, the Islamic Republic remains a theocratic tyranny, fixated on exporting terror and eliminating those who stand in its way. President Trump, speaking after coordination with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has been characteristically direct. He referenced being atop Iran's target list and the need to excise such threats like a cancer before they metastasize. His administration's recent strikes on Iranian assets in response to attacks on commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz underscore a refusal to tolerate weakness. This is standard Trump. Yes, there are threats. Yes, he is trying to stand up to them. Yes, he is trying to finally give up on peace. I know that he wants it so badly. People keep saying, oh, he's a warmonger. Listen, take Iran out of the equation. Take Israel out of the equation, and President Trump has been the most peace-loving president in our time. Unfortunately, Iran is in the picture. Iran has wanted to destroy the United States of America for nearly 5 decades. Iran wanted nuclear weapons in order to achieve their goals of killing the greater Satan. I know a lot of people out there are non-interventionists. I am one when it comes to pretty much everybody else other than Iran. When a regime that has control over oil, 90 million people, weapons from China, weapons from Russia, and enough uranium to be able to create nuclear weapons, when that country constantly, including their leaders, constantly chant death to America, you take them seriously. That is a real threat. This notion that, but they didn't really mean it. I don't even know. The people that claim, Iran hasn't done anything. Iran has been attacking the United States since they took hostages in 1979. They have not stopped. They just do it very, very quietly. They're very cunning, very evil. And so, yes, in this one instance, the 1 out of 100 times where we're talking about regime change, I wish that we could achieve regime change in Iran. I don't think it's possible. Clearly, we hoped, at least I hoped and thought, that if we took out their leaders, that the people would be able to rise up. Things didn't happen the way that President Trump wanted, the way that Benjamin Netanyahu wanted, the way that most of us wanted. And now here we are, stuck in this new quagmire. Now, granted, it's a much shorter quagmire thus far than Afghanistan or Iraq, but it is still, we're kind of stuck there, and that sucks. But even though I was against the Iran war from the start, before it started, once we were in, we go all the way through. And I don't apologize for it. I don't feel bad about it. I wish, when I say that I was against the war on February 28th, or technically February 27th before it started, what I'm saying is that I was against attacking right there and then. I still wanted the Iranian regime to be taken out. Just we weren't ready. And that bears out based upon the results. The Iranian regime is intact. It may be worse than it was before. Yes, their military has been decimated. Yes, allegedly we've taken out and greatly hampered their nuclear capabilities, but you can't trust them. You can't trust them, period. If they have the opportunity, they will assassinate President Trump. If they have the opportunity, they will get nuclear weapons. If they have the opportunity, they will destroy their own nation if that's what they thought it took in order to achieve their prophetic aims as detailed within the Quran itself. They do think that they have a destiny, and that makes them very dangerous. We must take them seriously. Pray for President Trump. Pray for the victory over the Iranian regime. And do so understanding that this is what would be best for the Iranian people. This is what they want as well, the vast majority of them. I'm not saying we do anything on their behalf, but by golly, if we can take out one of our greatest enemies, if not our most dangerous and erratic enemy right now, if we can take them out, well, yeah, it's going to benefit the Iranian people too.
Oh, you're going to love it. Love it.
I've long said that Europe may be lost forever. They may be officially conquered. They just don't know it yet, or at least most of them don't know it. Apparently some do. Ireland has been one of the rare areas in Europe that has been pushing back. The Irish people are fed up with it. They don't like it. But still, the authorities there, including the government, as well as their very woke police force, they seem to think that the Irish people are the problem, not the quote-unquote asylum seekers. Now they can point to, thanks to the latest example of an asylum seeker beating a white woman to death, they're turning their anger or their concerns towards me, towards what they call far-right influencers and podcasters who might try to stir up racial tensions because she was, this particular victim, was an American. We have a story over at Discern Report. It's based upon reporting from Human Events. Irish police concerned that far-right might stir racial tensions after a woman was murdered by an asylum seeker. They report that the Irish police are searching for a Middle Eastern asylum seeker accused of beating his American girlfriend to death in her Kerry home while expressing concern over a potential far-right response to the killing. Well, yeah, I'm going to respond. I'm far-right. I'm an American. I'm going to respond because this is infuriating. Jamie Carney, 43 years old, originally from New York, was found dead with severe head injuries, her body covered with a duvet and possibly undiscovered for up to 13 hours. Witnesses heard an argument between Carney and the suspect the night before. He had been living in an IPAS accommodation center because the accommodations, to be clear, even in Ireland, for the quote-unquote asylum seekers is well, obviously, It's dangerous, but it's also very nice for them. From what I hear, they do very well. He even occasionally stayed at her home, which I'm sure was probably nice as well. The suspect is believed to be Jordanian asylum seeker Ahmad al-Sakar, with whom Carney was in a relationship with. And they shared a pro-Palestinian woke belief system. Now, she wasn't alone. She brought her 13-year-old daughter with her from New York to Ireland to live with this asylum, or not live with, but to date this asylum seeker. The police in Ireland are worried that the case may be exploited by U.S. far-right figures and political actors to stir racial tensions in Ireland. The murder highlights the risks of Ireland's asylum policies. They're suicidal. It's not just asylum policies. These are suicidal policies. These are designed to replace the Irish people with the new variation of Irish people, such as Ahmad al-Sakar. He has, of course, fled, and they'll protect him. Look, they probably have arrested him. They just don't want anybody to know about it because they're scared. They're scared of the Irish people rising up and being upset by this. They're scared of people like you and me, Americans, who are very annoyed, very mad at this murder. Look, we might disagree with her politics. We might disagree that she's one of those river to the sea woke leftists who decided to bring her 13-year-old daughter to Irishistan, Irelandstan. I don't even know what you'd want to call it. But yeah, I mean, poor decisions. Fine. Shouldn't have been bringing your daughter there. Don't want to know what's going to happen with her with that, but it's still a very sad case, obviously. And it highlights highlights a lot of things. But number one, police should be far more concerned about asylum seekers and less concerned about far-right political figures in the United States who might stir racial tension. Guess what? We're not stirring racial tension. You know who's stirring racial tension? Ahmad al-Sakar, who decided that as an asylum seeker that he would beat a white woman to death. That's more of a racial tension than you and I being upset about it. But apparently Ireland's police force still hasn't gotten that memo.
Stay out of my territory.
You know, I did not have it on my bingo card as far as the possible ways to take down Gavin Newsom and his political career. I did not have diapers on there. Didn't see it coming. Didn't see this coming, but thanks to something that we see so rarely in local media nowadays, something you probably wouldn't recognize if you saw it again. Well, you're about to see it again. It's called journalism. And there's this one reporter up in Sacramento who just won't let the diaper story go. And now, this might be it. This might be the one that could take down Gavin Newsom.
40 million diapers, as many diapers will be distributed this year as Californians.
That was Governor Gavin Newsom about 2 months ago at a press conference announcing California's new free diaper program and a multi-million-dollar contract with the nonprofit Baby to Baby. But immediately critics pointed out that his wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, also had a relationship with at least one of the co-CEOs.
Sits on Jen's board of directors. Gavin Newsom is claiming there was this huge, rigorous process to figure out which group to partner with for this free diaper program. But was it really a rigorous process if you're best friends with the CEO of this company?
So we did a little fact check, and you should definitely go check out the story we did last month. But we could only go so far.
So far, the state will not give us a copy of the contract or the competitive bid scoring sheet.
4 days after that very high-profile press conference, we simply asked the governor's office for a copy of that contract that everyone was talking about. They told us, reach out to California Health and Human Services. They told us the contracts were with yet another agency. That agency told us our request had been received. That means legally, they had a maximum of 10 days to tell us whether or not we're going to get them. Exactly 10 days later, now 14 days after the press conference, the state replies, citing an unusual circumstance clause in the California Public Records Act, giving them another 14 days to decide if these are disclosable records. California law clearly states any executed contract is a public record, and so are competitive bid scoring sheets. Fast forward 14 more days. Spoiler alert, they are disclosable records, but the state would need another 3 to 4 weeks to get us copies. Translation, the state waited 24 days to promptly notify us that it would need another 28 days to get us a copy of that contract that the governor announced nearly 2 months ago.
A competitive bidding process.
Then, the day we were finally supposed to get the records, July 3rd, a state holiday, the Newsom administration told us they would need 2 more weeks.
It's unacceptable.
That's Jenny LaRue. She's with the First Amendment Coalition.
You should have had it in your hands the day they were talking about it.
She argues documents like state contracts shouldn't even require a public records request.
Do you think there's a world where state agencies just automatically upload all contracts?
I think there's a world where we make them do that.
That's State Senator Tom Umberg. He knows a bit about this issue.
Thank you, Assemblymember Pacheco, for bringing lots and lots of attention to this subject.
The Senate Judiciary Chair was instrumental in gutting a bill that would have let state agencies charge you hourly fees and even sue someone for requesting public information.
People shouldn't have to pay to get information from public officials.
Now, the amended version of the bill does give agencies even more time to respond to your public records request. Assemblywoman Pacheco argues they need it.
Agencies across the state are experiencing a sharp increase in requests that are exceptionally broad.
Meanwhile, we're still waiting for that baby-to-baby contract, now 60 days and counting.
And here we are.
For CBS California Investigates, I'm Julie Watts.
Fantastic work there. I hope that she keeps going. I hope nothing happens to her. She gets fired or something, because this is big. It doesn't seem big. It's just diapers. It's just a few $1,000,000, right? Except that if this is tied to his wife, if this is tied to her nonprofit, which is already being investigated, started getting investigated by the Biden DOJ, continuing forward now with the Trump DOJ, especially with all of this scrutiny, this is not a tiny thing. This is a big deal, because we're talking about it's taking what, 2 months, over 2 months, just to get a contract. Talk about lack of transparency. This is a cover-up. At the very least, this is a cover-up. We have a story over at truthbasedmedia.com. Newsom's Diapergate delays are starting to smell like a cover-up. They've been smelling like a cover-up for a little while. Gavin Newsom stood before the cameras in May and bragged about a first-in-the-nation program to hand free diapers to every new parent in California. 2 months later, his administration will not let Californians see the contract behind it. There's a word for governments that announce deals in public and then bury the paperwork, and that is not transparent. The Newsom administration is not accused of fraud, to be clear, in the baby-to-baby deal, but it is doing a remarkable impression of an administration that would rather you just not check. What are they trying to cover? Again, best case scenario for them is that they just don't like the optics. They don't like the optics of what Gavin Newsom said publicly was a rigorous search for the right company, and then it just happens to be a company with a board member who is besties with his wife, who works with her nonprofit. I mean, best case scenario for them is that it's bad optics. Worst case scenario for them, and this seems to be, considering how long they are letting this drag out, forcing this to drag out, it seems like they just didn't do a bid. They just like, hey, yeah, who's going to care? It's just a few $1,000,000, right? We deal with billions here in California. Why is anybody going to care about diapers? Oh, like they're going to come after our diaper program? Nah, go ahead. Just give it to your buddy. I am not accusing them of doing exactly that, but I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me if that's exactly how it went down. And kudos to CBS California for doing this. Again, it would be ironic if the legacy media that has defended and protected him for decades now would be the one that actually ends up taking him down. Delay after delay after delay. There's something here. When there's smoke, there's probably fire, right? We know that. Well, this is very, very smoky. As smoky as it gets. And I would argue, just saying, I would argue that this could be the one. This could be that thing that finally takes down Gavin Newsom.
This is it. I'm telling you, this is it.
There comes a point where all you really want is transparency. You know, the expectations that the bad guys are going to be held accountable. I think many of us have grown weary of holding on to such hopes, right? The Seth Rich case is one of those scenarios. I would love to know exactly what happened. The theories out there, the conspiracy theories out there, all seem pretty sound. You know, as far as conspiracy theories go, this one seems to fit, right? This one seems to make a lot of sense. Here's a DNC staffer who many believe was involved in the leaking of emails, DNC emails, including the infamous John Podesta emails, the Hillary Clinton emails, that he's the guy that leaked it to WikiLeaks and got all of that exposed. Now, of course, nothing came from it, unfortunately. That's the reality of a society that doesn't like to look at such uncomfortable things and doesn't like to acknowledge when our quote-unquote leaders are doing very, very, very evil things. Well, Seth Rich thought that by getting the information out there that it would expose things, and instead he ended up getting killed in what they're saying was a botched robbery, when what many of us believe was far worse than that. Well, we now have at least one member of Congress on our side trying to get the truth out there. According to an article over at Zero Hedge, this is actually, they copied the article from headlineusa.com, but either way, Tennessee congressman demands FBI unseal everything on Seth Rich. And of course, that congressman is Tim Burchett, one of the few that we can trust, at least for the most part, on Capitol Hill. Jose Nino reports that Tennessee Rep. Tim Burchett has demanded FBI Director Kash Patel unseal and release all records related to the 2016 murder of DNC staffer Seth Rich. He was 27 when he was shot in Washington, D.C. in what police called a botched robbery, but his death sparked persistent theories that he leaked DNC emails to WikiLeaks before being silenced. The demand builds on years of FOIA litigation by attorney Ty Clevenger, which forced the FBI to admit holding over 20,000 pages of documents, Rich's work laptop, and an image of his personal device. Now, keep in mind, the FBI, up until they were forced to tell the at least part of the truth, they were saying, "Oh, we're not even looking into it. This is a local police matter. It's just a crime. FBI's not involved. You know, we don't have at least 20,000 pages of documents or his laptop or anything else." The FBI, again, this is not fact. This is how the theory goes. The FBI, working with the DNC, decided to cover it up. They for whatever reason, they came along and they said, "Oh, look at this." And then they walked away. Instead of investigating it, they took the evidence and covered it up. They hid it. They had the local police say, just botched robbery, shot twice in the head, assassination style, because he wouldn't give over his Timex watch or whatever it was that they were claiming. Do I expect there to be any repercussions from this within the FBI, within the DNC? Will anybody who participated in this murder ever be caught, arrested, charged, tried, convicted? No. But at the very least, we can get transparency, and praise God for both Ty Clevenger as well as for Tim Burchett for trying to shine a light on this. It didn't get the attention it deserved. Not at the time. Hasn't been getting the attention it has deserved ever since. Legacy media effectively buried it. It came at a time when we weren't quite ready as citizen journalists to fully get the word out. And so hopefully now this will be an opportunity to relitigate, at least in the podcastosphere, relitigate the very sordid, ugly case of Seth Rich.
It will shock you how much it never happened.
James Talarico represents the greatest threat to Republican control of Senate that we have in America today. He is the best Democrat candidate to run on a statewide election level in the state of Texas in at least 3 decades. And he's running against Ken Paxton. And as much as I adore Ken Paxton's policies, he does have some personal baggage. He's vulnerable. And I remember I was very, very in warning phase, as guys, be careful. It's very possible that the Democrats could sink $250 million into this Talarico race. I was shocked and probably underestimating it. There are now those who say that Democrats might sink $500 million, $500 million into this U.S. Senate race. And that's enough, folks. That's enough to potentially buy it. We have to stop him. But here's the thing. It's not just about control of the Senate, Republicans maintaining control, or even getting Ken Paxton into the Senate. James Talarico represents a far greater risk to this nation, and it has nothing to do with his politics. It has to do with his full-blown heretical perspectives when it comes to faith. I want you to watch this and pay close attention.
I'm always so thrilled when I get invited, to the Diwali festival. I think I've gone 2 years in a row now. And, also have gotten a chance to speak at some of our local mosques. And I find such wisdom and comfort and inspiration from faith traditions all over the world. And I find that they're all kind of equal pathways to truth. That's how I think, I always think of all of the world's faith traditions as like a circle with, that divine mystery of the universe in the middle. And we all have different names for that mystery, right? Whether it's God or Yahweh or Allah or Nirvana, the Great Spirit, whatever you call it. This is all, different pathways to the same kind of fundamental truth of reality. So yeah, it's something it's how I try to stay grounded and stay rooted.
No. They are not different pathways to the same fundamental truth. Not in the same realm. And as a matter of fact, it's the exact opposite of what James Talarico is saying. And this is a man who's been to Bible college. He's a pastor. This man is dangerous. He's dangerous to the United States of America. He's dangerous to the Christian faith. Because, believe it or not, people will listen to him. People will hear his words and they'll think that makes sense. But comparing the God of the Bible to Allah, to Nirvana, to any other false gods, that's not only just wrong, completely wrong, it's very dangerous. Because we are seeing in America and across Western culture this deviation from the true faith. And I know a lot of you out there, maybe you're an atheist or Muslim or whatever, and you might be thinking, well, you can't really say that. I can say that. As a Bible-believing Christian, I can tell you with 100% certainty that the God of the Bible is not just a different path to the same thing, and that Allah is the same as the God in the Bible, or that Nirvana or any great spirit or Vishnu or any of these false gods, none of them are the same as Jesus Christ, as the Holy Spirit, as God Almighty. So when you have somebody like a James Talarico, who is currently in a position of power, who wants to go into a position of great power, to have this very, very large audience, large microphone, the ability to shift from what he claims to be a biblical perspective, to shift policies here in America, this man is not just a danger to our political future. He's a danger to the soul of the United States of America, and he must be stopped. Period.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Talarico isn't just going to rely on dark money, though. Yes, there's going to be plenty of that, but there's a difference between dark money and campaign money. Campaign money, even though it's usually far less than the dark money thrown into a campaign such as the one in Texas, it's not as effective. The campaign money is far more effective than the dark money because you can do certain things with it, which I'll get into here in a second. Let's go to the story. He is fundraising like nobody's ever seen before. He's breaking records. According to the Texas Tribune, James Talarico raises over $30 million in the second quarter, the campaign has said, which is more than triple Ken Paxton's sum. Now, to put that in perspective, if you were to take Beto O'Rourke's sum in the same quarter of 2018, combine that with Colin Allred's sum in the same quarter in 2024, you would almost have to double it to get to the number that James Talarico has gotten by himself. Yes, it's more than triple, or around triple what Beto O'Rourke was able to raise, and he was setting records back then. Now we're going far higher. State Rep James Talarico, the Senate nominee for the Democrats, raised a staggering $30 million from April through June. This campaign announced Wednesday, which is more than triple the amount brought in by Ken Paxton in the same period. Hall is a record, according to the campaign. And he's now raised more than $70 million from 1.5 million donations, including 780,000 individual contributors since launching his bid in September. Now, I'm not going to make any accusations, but I will say that there are questions, perhaps even investigations, maybe charges, against Act Blue, which is the fundraising apparatus for the Democrats, ways that they're able to do things in certain ways that can manufacture possibly some of these 1.5 million donors that have materialized for Talarico. I'm not saying that he can't fundraise. The dude, he clearly can. Again, very silver tongue. I mean, he's very well spoken, comes across well enough. I mean, I don't know if it's one of those conundrums, because you look at him, you hear him, and you think this guy couldn't win in Texas. But then you have to remember that Texas is not nearly as red as its history has shown. Texas has been a quote-unquote battleground state for a long time now. Granted, the Republicans have been winning those battles. But Talarico may be different. You can't be complacent. You can't let this one slide by. This is, especially now with Plattner out, with the hopes that they had for Maine diminishing. Democrats are likely to double down on the closest of races, which right now the closest race is in Texas. They're virtually tied, Ken Paxton and James Talarico. He says he's honored, yada, yada, yada. Earlier Wednesday, Paxton's campaign said he had raised over $9 million, and that's a lot. That's more than I think they would have expected, but it's still less than a third of what Talarico was able to raise. It's a personal best and the largest amount announced by any non-incumbent Senate GOP candidate this cycle, per his campaign. Both campaigns had yet to file their second quarter reports, which are due July 15th, yada, yada, yada. How does this compare? This would be let's see, where is it? Beto O'Rourke raised $10.4 million in 2018. Colin Allred raised $7.9 million in 2024. Again, combine those, you almost have to double them to get to Talarico's number. Now, why is this important? You might think, well, what's the difference? You already said that they're going to throw $500 million potentially at this race. What's $30 million? What's that going to do? Well, here's the thing. Campaign money can be used for things that dark money cannot. Dark money, you can buy ads, basically. That's it. Buy television, buy radio, buy television, buy radio. Okay, but with campaign money, you can hire staff. You can hold events. You can make those events bigger. You can pay for travel. You can have him going out and about across Texas nonstop. You can send campaign surrogates to host lavish events for more fundraising. There's a lot you can do with campaign money that you just can't do with dark money. That's why it is so important for these candidates to be able to raise huge sums of money. And again, I'm not trying to downplay Paxton. He's done great. He has outraised every other Republican out there so far this cycle, but he's still being dwarfed by Talarico, and there's a reason for that. I'm not going to get into any deeper into Act Blue accusations, but I think you get the picture here. We cannot let this race be won. It's not just about maintaining control of the Senate. It's not for the sake of Republicans. It's not for the sake of Ken Paxton, even though all those are worthy causes. As I keep saying, and I'll repeat this 15 times over the next month or two or three, James Talarico is a representation of the spiritual battle being waged against America. If he wins, he will not just be a victory for Democrats that can be symbolic in the state of Texas, that can change the way that the campaigns are operated. There's a lot of upside for Democrats on this one. But the most important one, and this pertains to the globalist elite cabal, is they get a, quote-unquote, a man of God on the Democrat side into the U.S. Senate. That can be very, very destructive.
Please do, Billy. Explain everything.
With the advances in artificial intelligence, it's easy for people to become complacent, especially in Western society, especially here in the United States. There's one area, though, where artificial intelligence, I do not believe it's anywhere near ready for big time, and yet it's already being used, and some nurses are calling it out. Of course, I'm talking about the healthcare industry, where, sure, using AI tools might be beneficial in helping to diagnose, helping to analyze, but when it comes to direct interactions, I don't want AI anywhere near me or my family or anybody that I even like, let alone love, except that's exactly what's happening. According to an article that we have over at basedunderground.com, Kaiser nurses sound the alarm that AI surveillance threatens patient care and human dignity. Kaiser Permanente's advice nurses are raising red flags about the rapid integration of AI and workplace surveillance tools. And it's flat out surveillance. This isn't hyperbole. They are having all their calls monitored. AI is going through them, and they're facing actual repercussions based upon the tone of their voice, the length of their calls, everything, all driven by artificial intelligence. Far from the promised efficiencies, these technologies appear to be squeezing the humanity out of nursing, prioritizing metrics, and cost-cutting over compassionate care. Call center nurses at the massive nonprofit health giant report that constant monitoring and AI-driven evaluations are forcing them to rush through patient interactions. Stop. Okay? Let's just stop right there and declare that that's wrong. If I'm on the phone with a nurse and I'm having some sort of medical concern, medical issue, one that maybe doesn't necessarily require me to go to the hospital, but that I have a concern about. And look, I'm that guy. I don't go to the hospital unless I absolutely positively have to. If I can reset the bone and throw some duct tape around it, that's me. I know, probably the wrong approach, and I'm not offering medical advice by any means. Don't listen to me. But with that said, these nurses, these call center nurses, play an extremely important role in today's world. We want to try to avoid having to go into healthcare facilities as much as possible. And if we can describe what's happening to us or our loved ones and get advice from an experienced nurse on the other end, that's a good thing. Except when these nurses are concerned that the tone of their voice might actually raise red flags and get them called into the office, which is exactly what's happening. And they're not happy about it. Tools that scrutinize tone of voice, empathy levels, and call duration are turning dedicated professionals into data points, undermining the very duty of care that defines their vocation. This isn't progress, it's corporate experiment that risks real harm to patients seeking timely, thoughtful medical guidance. The concerns echo broader warnings from nurses across California and the nation. At Kaiser, advice nurses handling triage and patient advice calls describe an environment where speed trumps safety. And again, stop right there. At no point should somebody's effectiveness as a call nurse be determined based upon whether or not AI thinks they're taking too long. Take as long as you need. Take as long as is necessary. Now, I'm not suggesting they don't need supervision. I just don't want AI making the call. Okay? I mean, there are ways in these call centers, in these hospitals, where you can have appropriate, proper medical monitoring without having to worry about the effects of AI. And here's the thing. Even if, let's say that AI isn't making bad choices, that doesn't matter. The sheer fact that they're being monitored, that they're being surveilled by artificial intelligence, that's disconcerting to a whole bunch of people. Okay, some of you out there might be like, hey, cool, it's going to happen anyway. Bring on Minority Report. I'm ready. Well, I'm not, and I would imagine that a lot of nurses are not either. An AI tool tested since 2024 analyzes vocal tones for empathy, adding another layer of oversight. This push towards surveillance-heavy AI in healthcare fits a troubling pattern. Large institutions, often shielded by layers of bureaucracy and progressive policy, embrace unproven technologies while sidelining the experienced judgment of frontline workers. The nurses are supposed to be the front line. Anybody who's ever spent time in the hospital, you know who's calling the shots. Sure, your doctor's got to sign this and they've got to analyze that, and they're the ones that make the final call. But in the day-to-day actual care of the vast majority of patients in America, it is the nurse, your nurse, nurses, plural, they're the ones that deliver the bulk of the care. They're the ones that are actually keeping Americans healthy. And I don't want them, whether they're on the phone or off the phone or doing their rounds or whatever, I don't want them stressed out because they're scared that AI Big Brother is going to out them and bring them in for a performance review, which is exactly what's happening. By the way, this isn't like hypothetical. This is exactly what's happening, and that's why these ladies and gentlemen, there's men involved too. I shouldn't sound, oh, he's one of those old boomer sexists who thinks all nurses should be women. No, that's not me. I prefer female nurses, to be clear, but that's just because I think they're, generally speaking, my experience is that they've been better than the male versions. Of course, I haven't been to a whole bunch of hospitals, so who knows? Anyway, before I get into any more trouble, there is a human cost of metric-driven medicine. Nurses have long served as the compassionate bridge between patients and complex medical systems. Their role demands attentiveness, discernment, and the ability to read subtle cues that no algorithm can fully capture. Yet at Kaiser, workplace tools reportedly penalize deviations from scripted efficiency, leaving little room for the nuanced conversations that can prevent emergencies or provide reassurance. Critics rightly question whether these systems truly serve patients or simply pad the bottom line. Kaiser Permanente, one of the earliest adopters of AI in healthcare settings, promotes its tools as innovations that reduce burnout and improve outcomes. The nurses on the ground tell a very different story, one of increased pressure, eroded trust, and compromised safety. When it comes to health, you don't want to compromise, period. And even if AI advances to the point, people keep talking about, oh, yeah, AI is going to be helping us make medicines. AI is going to help us make vaccines. They're going to perfect mRNA. AI is going to make your doctor obsolete once you have the robotics accurate enough, which it's there. It's pretty much there. Tie that in, you'll soon be having full-blown AI robot-driven surgeries. They're going to be cutting you open and taking out your appendix or whatever. Not me. I want a human doctor. Can humans make mistakes? You betcha. But as long as they're the ones making the mistakes, I'm not going to wonder whether or not the artificial intelligence made a blunder based upon stupidity or inefficiency, or if it's just part of the whole artificial intelligence taking over the world and bringing about the end times and the beast system. There's that. That's a possibility.
Well, just a second there, Professor. We fixed the glitch. So he won't be receiving a paycheck anymore, so it'll just work itself out naturally.
We always like to avoid confrontation whenever possible.
All right, stay tuned. We are going to be rating the Wendy Bell radio program. As soon as I get this squared away, here's some news while I get the raid all set up.
I don't think it's fair to say that they delayed it. Look, you put faces on money to commemorate American icons. And I think that there are only a limited number of bills, 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 150. So there has to be a very selective process. And Harriet Tubman absolutely deserves recognition, which she has recognition already. But I do think that the burden is put on Democrats to explain why Harriet Tubman, first of all, out of every option, hold on, let me finish, please. Okay, all right. Out of every option, especially someone like Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson is a man who nonetheless, he saved the Union during the nullification crisis. He was a war hero in 1815. He actually vetoed the second charter of the bank, which was seen at the time as a way to take power away from the rich and elites. This is a man who...
What's the argument against Harriet Tubman?
What's the argument for Harriet Tubman?
What's the argument for Donald Trump getting a $250
Harriet
bill?
Tubman?
Do we have to do a history lesson?
But why over anyone else? Why over Andrew Jackson?
I mean, because I think she represents the importance of regular people in this country taking justice and history in their own hands and doing the right thing.
But the purpose of commemorative faces on money is not just for great
women
Americans.
like her, if you're a conservative, you should love Harriet Tubman. She was a gun-toting
it's not an argument.
Abolitionist.
It's not that she's not an argument.
She was a everyday American hero.
And
that's
at 250 I don't know, but my point is, I think in fairness, I don't hear conservatives saying she does not deserve any kind of recognition.
I didn't say any kind of recognition.
The
conversation has always
we had to make a case for why Harriet Tubman.
But this administration has been
why did she displace Andrew Jackson?
The argument is about the replacement of Andrew Jackson. That was the initial argument, and that was why there was pushback initially. Put her on a new bill. I don't care. I mean, I don't think.
Put her on the
250.
Put her on the 250.
So I would be okay with that as well.
Is Donald Trump on the 250?
I don't
they would have
think
to pass
he
an
should be
act of
on
Congress.
it, but it's not going to happen. I don't think it should. I think it was stupid for them to even have this conversation. I get that Harriet Tubman is deserving of something, 100%. Put it on a new bill. This idea that we're going to suddenly just remove people from tender for political reasons, for historical, whatever the reason is, you just open up a slippery slope. Why specific to Jackson? Why not Washington? But you can make these arguments forever. So why don't we just be respectful and say a new bill?
Look, I mean, Harriet Tubman represents everything that Donald Trump is not, right? There's somebody who put her body on the line, who was a regular person.
Donald Trump was shot and nearly killed for trying to be president.
Stop.
No, it did happen. I hate to remind you.
My God. Okay, well, you should talk to the MAGA folks who don't believe that Butler was real, but
that
that's a
is
different
not
conversation.
Something that's
There's
an
a lot of
conversation.
people out there that are saying, including Candace Owens.
You believe that it's not real?
No, I believe.
Okay, well, then just accept it.
But regardless,
Wait, can we talk about the bill?
Let's talk about the bill instead of